You know, just like that psalm, Easter is a bit of a paradox, isn't it? On Good Friday, we sort of remember with a bit of sorrow what Jesus went through because of us, what we put him through. But then come Resurrection Sunday, today, we celebrate that was not the end of the story, that he conquered the grave, that he rose from the dead, and he did that for each and every one of us. Isn't it remarkable? Absolutely. All right, let's do celebration time now. So if you've had a birthday or an anniversary, hand up nice and high, and my helpers will come around with chocolates. We've got a bunch on this side. We've got people dobbing in, other people over here maybe. Oh, there's a whole lot. Are you guys just people who didn't get Easter eggs today and want a chocolate? Are these all birthdays, or were there some anniversaries in there? Anniversaries there. Lachlan, there's one in the middle there. One right down the back, Reuben. Right down there. Oh, yeah, front, and right down that back corner. Well, if it was a birthday either this week or this week coming, happy birthday to you all. If it was an anniversary, congratulations to you. And we hope you have a special day if it's coming, or did have a special day if it has been. Did we miss anyone? Anyone who was having a celebration who didn't get a chocolate, hand up now. I think we got it covered. Well done, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. So now we're going to have a little bit of an item from the kids. So the kids' church have been putting together a little something over the last couple of weeks for you guys to enjoy this morning, and a couple of those kids are going to come up and sort of present it to you this morning. So if I can have my kids up and taking their place.
All right, class, settle down. Okay, time for roll call. Chris?
Yes, miss.
Reuben? Jess?
Hello.
Who knows what's coming up this weekend?
It's Easter and we get a long weekend. Woo!
And Easter eggs. And we're going to go to church twice in one weekend.
Chris?
Yes.
What are you doing?
Well, it's Easter, and we can't have Easter without a Palm Sunday.
Put it away.
Oh, okay.
Now, who can tell me why we celebrate Easter?
I don't understand it, but my pastor says it's because Jesus rose, died, and he conquered the gravy.
No, Jesus died and rose again and then had a rave so his friends could celebrate.
Not quite, but let's go a little bit back further in the story, shall we?
Okay, let's see if I can remember.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness.
Not that far back. How about we pick up the story at the Last Supper?
I got this one, miss. Jesus had arrived in Jerusalem, and he good time when Jesus told them that one of them were going to betray him.
Didn't they go to a garden or something? The garden of Gethsemane?
Yep. After the supper, they went to the garden, and Jesus told his friends to stay awake and pray with him while he went off to pray. But when he came back, they had fallen asleep.
Well, do you blame them? They just ate as much as they could because someone told them it was going to be their last supper.
And there were soldiers too, weren't there? Were the soldiers of Geth looking for his enemy?
No, the soldiers were looking for Jesus, but they didn't know which one he was.
Until one of his mates betrayed him and gave it away. And there was a fight, wasn't there?
Did Jesus fight Geth's enemy? Was he on Geth's side?
No, Jesus tried to stop his disciples fighting with the soldiers.
Oh, and then they cut one of the soldiers' hair.
Ear. One of Jesus' disciples cut off a soldier's ear.
Awesome.
Not awesome, but thankfully Jesus healed the soldier's ear, and the disciples and the soldiers were all amazed. But not so amazed that it stopped them from arresting him and taking him away.
So, wait a minute. We celebrate Easter because Jesus had dinner and got arrested?
No, Chris, the story isn't over. But Jesus showed remarkable obedience to his Father throughout this whole thing, even though he knew what was coming.
What was coming?
Sometimes I wish you kids could learn some of his obedience. Chris.
I said that. Oh, what was coming?
Well, let's continue and find out, shall we?
So, Jesus got put on a trial and taken before a meanie called Pilate.
Hey, miss, it looks like you.
I remember the Pilate guy. He was the one who told Jesus he needed to wash his hands. Is that why they arrested him? For poor hygiene?
No. After talking with Jesus, Pilate said that he washed his hands as a way of saying that he couldn't find anything wrong with Jesus, that he was innocent. But he was found guilty and sentenced to death.
And didn't they make Jesus carry his cross through the streets?
Yes, but I think it was a bit bigger than that. And they nailed Jesus to the cross among a couple of thieves and criminals and left him to die.
But I thought Jesus was God, wasn't he? He can't die.
Well, he did. After hanging on the cross, he called out to his Father to forgive the people who had done this to him, and then he died.
And when he died, didn't it get really dark? And so people tried to rip their curtains, trying to let the sun back in or something?
And there was an earthquake too?
Close. After he had died, they took Jesus down and buried him in a tomb.
Well done. I see you guys have got a pretty good grasp on this Easter story. Chris, you made a comment about how Jesus not being able to die.
Yeah, well, I thought that they couldn't kill God. And even if they somehow could, couldn't he have just called him for heavenly backup and wasted those guys?
He could have, but he chose not to. This was all part of his plan, and he was willing to sacrifice himself for what he loved the most.
And what was that? Easter eggs?
No, it was all of us. We are what he loves enough to die for.
So we celebrate Easter because Jesus died?
Yes, but the story doesn't end there. There's still more to come.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Shall I take it from here, miss?
Yes, please, Jess.
So, let's see. Jesus' tomb was covered with a big stone, but some angels appeared and they rolled the stone away.
Where did they roll it to?
I don't know, they just rolled it away.
Did they kick it?
Nope, they just rolled and 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 rolled it. Then Jesus rose from the dead and left the tomb. The next day, one of Jesus' followers, Mary, came to the tomb looking for Jesus, but she saw the stone had been rolled away, and when she looked in the tomb, she found it empty.
Bummer.
Mary was sad. She thought that someone had stolen Jesus' body, but then Jesus came and revealed himself to her, and she was super excited. She rushed off to tell the rest of the disciples that Jesus was alive.
They must have been pretty surprised.
They were. Some of them didn't believe Mary, but Jesus eventually showed up to all of the disciples, and they all saw that he was alive again. It was a miracle.
I'm glad Jesus didn't stay dead. That would have been a pretty lame story if he did.
We're all glad that Jesus didn't stay dead, and that's why we still celebrate Easter thousands of years later after all this happened. When Jesus died and then rose again, he defeated death, gave us hope, and made a way for anyone who wants to come to God, no matter who they are and what they have done. When we celebrate Easter, we are remembering that Jesus is the King of the whole world, and if we follow him, then he is our King and friend as well. Okay, class dismissed. Have a great weekend, and I will see you back here on Tuesday when we start on quadratic expressions and their usage in everyday life.
Aww.
Did they do a good job? Thank you, guys. I'll just return all these to the worship team because I'll need them in a second. Bear with me. So I thought this morning, seeing these poor kids had to go to school on Easter, that you guys are going to have some schooling this morning as well. So who just moaned? So I thought this morning we're going to give you a little education in Easter. Don't boo, Amori. Now, see, I was thinking about Easter, and I was thinking about the grammar of Easter, or more specifically, the punctuation of Easter. You see, our punctuation in the English language is silent. We don't make a noise for our punctuation, and yet it's hugely important in how we speak, what we hear, what we read, how we write, because it can change everything. For example, punctuation can save lives. Let's eat, Grandpa. Let's eat, Grandpa. Commas, they save lives. They saved Grandpa's life in this case. Did you like that one? All right. You know, when I was in intermediate school, which was a few years ago, but not as many as some of you, which you guys down here don't even have intermediate school, do you? It's just an extension of primary school. But up in the frigid north, although it's warmer up there, up in the wonderful north, we have this thing called intermediate school. And when I was in intermediate school, I remember very vividly one of the boys in school for speech competition. We used to have to go up and stand up there and, do a speech from cue cards, and it was pretty much the worst part of all school. But I remember one boy called Jared Neathling, and it's funny, I can still remember his name to this day, even though, really based on his speech. But he did this speech one year, and he did it around punctuation, and the whole premise was, what if punctuation made a noise? And so then his whole speech, he told his speech, but anytime there was punctuation mark, instead of sort of leaving a pause or doing whatever you do with punctuation, he replaced each punctuation mark with a different noise, a different sound. And he told this, and then it was hilarious. The kids were laughing, the teachers were laughing. He won the competition that year. It was educational around punctuation, but it was humorous and funny as well. But it really highlighted the fact that our punctuation is really important. And so, again, I was thinking about the punctuation of Easter, of the story we have. So we start off, at the start, we have Jesus has arrived on the scene declaring the kingdom of God has come. We start with the speech marks. And I've kind of chosen a color again that's hard to see. But Jesus is proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom. That's how the story is launched. He is talking. But those in power would not have it and had Jesus killed. There it is. And that one ends in a full stop. You don't get a louder full stop than death, do you? Some people didn't like what Jesus was proclaiming. Some people didn't like the good news that Jesus was bringing. And so they tried to put an end to it, just like a full stop puts an end to a sentence. It finishes that sentence. Now, I wonder how his followers were feeling about it all being over. Question mark. Put yourself in the shoes or the sandals of the disciples in this moment after Jesus' death. You've thrown all your eggs into this one basket. You've believed in this Jesus who you thought was the Messiah. And you thought he was going to come and bring this new kingdom that he was proclaiming. And he was going to overthrow the systems of Rome and all of that. But suddenly he's dead, full stop. And you're left with a giant question mark. Was he really who he claimed to be? Did we do the right thing following him? How could it be after all those miracles and things we saw? How can it end this way? But it was far from over as Jesus rose from the grave and death was defeated. Exclamation mark. The full stop did not end the story, but in an exclamation mark that is more profound than I think any other moment in the history of the world outside of the exclamation mark of creation itself. Jesus turns everything on its head. He overcomes death. He defeats the grave, and he rises again. It was not the end of the kingdom or the end of the story. And here, the full stop in what Jesus does, the full stop gets turned into a comma. It's no longer the end of the sentence. It's no longer the end of the story. The story continues. It is but a momentary pause. And today on Resurrection Sunday, we are coming out the other side of that comma, the other side of that pause. We remember that it was not a full stop, that the story was not over, that he had risen. And it's a story that still continues today. Dot, dot, dot. Thank you. I'm so glad I've got you here, Amori. I would have forgotten a dot otherwise. You know, this whole story ends with an ellipsis, which is the dot, dot, dot. For those of you who didn't know, and I'm going to be one of those ones who said, I Googled it just to make sure. This whole story ends in a dot, dot, dot because the story has not finished. The reason we are all here this morning is because this story is still ongoing. And it's a story that each and every one of us are invited into. God's kingdom has come and is still coming. And as followers of Jesus, if you are one of those this morning, then that's a story that you are a part of. We are living now in the dot, dot, dot. Because it isn't finished yet. And as we know as believers, we have the exciting hope and the knowledge of how the story ends, of how it all goes, even in the face of when we look around the world around us and we go, really, God? We might have a question mark above our heads. God, is it really going to finish the way you said it was? Because at the moment, not so sure. God, are you really sovereign over it all? Because at the moment, I've got a big question mark. But we know how it finishes. And it finishes with an exclamation mark. We're not going to go into it this morning, but if you know the story, you know how it finishes. But at the moment, we're living in the ellipsis. We're in the dot, dot, dot. And that's an exciting place to be. Because this Easter Sunday and this whole Easter weekend, we don't only remember a story that is long finished. We don't just sit here and go, wasn't that nice that happened all that time ago? But it's because of what happened in that very first Easter that we are here today, and that story is ongoing. So my question for you this morning is, what punctuation mark are you today? As you're sitting here listening to this, what punctuation mark might be sitting above your head if we had a little animated thing and we could all see punctuation marks hovering above us like tongues of fire? Are you a speech mark? Maybe you have been invited along here this morning and this is the first time you've heard any of this and you're going, huh? What's he talking about? What kingdom? Who died? Who rose again? Why does it matter? Who cares? Maybe you're a question mark and you don't know what's going on. Or maybe you're a question mark, like I said before, because you know God's story, but then you look around you at the kingdoms of this world and you go, I don't know, God. Are you sure you've got this under control? Are you a full stop this morning? Has the story already finished? And it's just something that you come out every now and then on a Sunday to remember, but it doesn't change or impact your life every day. Is your reality shaped by the systems and the kingdoms of this world instead of the systems and kingdom of heaven? Or maybe this morning your full stop's getting changed into a comma. Maybe you're sitting there and the Spirit of God is going, hey, I'm here. And I want you here. And I want you to be a part of this with me. Will you join with me? It's not over. It hasn't finished. Or are you in ellipses this morning? Are you living in that story that's still ongoing? There's a thing that propelled you out of bed this morning, the knowledge that you get to come together with your church family and celebrate the resurrection of our King and everything that that means for not just us in this room, but for the entire world. Whatever punctuation mark you might be, and you might be some obscure one that no one knows about because you're that kind of person who just has to be different, and that's fine. But no matter what you are this morning, the remarkable story of Easter as well is that Jesus meets us where we're at. Jesus didn't wait until everyone was A-OK before coming to save us. Jesus didn't wait for everything to be lined up just right. He came and he found the world as he found it, and he found us as he found us. And each of you, if you have given your heart over to him and you follow him daily, you know that at some point he found you just the way you were. And that was what he worked with. And so no matter what your punctuation mark is today, Jesus finds you here today, and he meets you exactly where you are at. You can't be too bad for him, and please don't try and be too good for him. But you are his children. He died and he rose for you and for me and for the world.